All right. All right, so we are so excited here at UWSP. I'm going to read a little bit of your bio, but I also have things I'll add. So Korean-born clarinetist Wonkak Kim has captivated audiences around the world with his excellent breath control and exuberant musicianship. Kim appeared as a soloist and chamber musician at major venues throughout the United States, such as Carnegie Hall, the Lincoln Center, the Kennedy Center, and Constitution Hall, as well as in Paris, London, Madrid, Geneva, Seoul, Osaka, Costa Rica, Poland, and Brazil. He is a Naxos recording artist that has received countless praises on all of his releases, and his live recordings have been used with Radio France, BBC, Radio 3, Swedish Radio, and many others. So Kim joined the music faculty at the University of Oregon School of Music as assistant professor of clarinet in 2017. Prior to his appointment at UO, Kim served as associate professor of clarinet at Tennessee Tech University from 2012 to 17, where he received numerous faculty awards. He's a frequent guest artist and teacher at world-renowned institutions, including Juilliard School, Manhattan School of Music, Yale School of Music, and San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. We are so excited that he is here. His bio is on the website. I highly recommend you take a look at it. But thank you so much, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you so much for, wow, I don't know how to live up to the intro, but I'll try. And it's really good to see you all. I was at the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point just a couple of years ago. We were talking about it, and it's just surreal. It's only been less than 2 years, but it feels so distant, and we're in this. But again, I get to see you, all the students there, and also some others I heard. So that's the new opportunity that's given to us with the pandemic. So hope to think on the brighter side. So today I proposed to work on a specific topic rather than like a master class. I understand that the students at the Stevens Point are getting a really good sort of weekly master class thanks to your amazing professor. I wish I could do that, but that's just a full-time work in addition to what she's doing. So again, many praises. So anyways, I'll be talking on the giant topic of legato, playing intervals, playing connections when playing the instrument. And like I said, it's one of the central aspect of our clarinet playing. And we all talk about it, talk and think about it daily, but how we can sort of engrave this idea in a simplistic term and in a way that we can practice at such a subconscious level that it is really built into our playing, regardless of all the other challenges. And I'd like to sort of help you to build the hierarchy in your playing so that when we, it's a technical aspect, obviously, to help your music, our musical expression, but, to build that very strong foundation and always keep the playing intervals and between notes and all the legato in your playing. So I always like to start with some feedback from the participants. What you think about what you think of legato? Um, why it's important? So
Yeah.
anybody
Sam?
has
Yeah,
yeah.
we have someone right here.
It gives like connection between each note.
Okay, so that's a very good definition of legato. One way to put it, connection between notes. Is that what you said? Yeah.
The way we connect between notes.
The way we connect. Yeah, good.
Really loud.
Copies the voice, the way we speak. That's also really good because it's so intuitive. A lot of times, we communicate through music and we speak naturally. Well, sometimes speaking naturally is hard, right? Even when you're nervous or when the words don't come to your mind. There are all these things. I think it's similar to when we play. There a lot of technical hurdles that poses problem and makes this intuitive process difficult, and we have to find a way to overcome them. Any other thoughts on legato?
Any thoughts in here? Good. I think it's important, I'll add, I think it's important because it is directly related to our musicality. How
That's
we can
right.
be
It's
musical.
mhm. Yeah, and it's process of bringing the music inside us out into the physical space, right, through sound and vibration. And unless we have a very good way to tie our musical ideas together with good connection and legato, those aren't delivered and will not touch people in the way that we intend to. Help exactly express the phrasing. These are conceptual ideas, and we express this through sound using our instrument. Now, let me ask you, what are some of the challenges of that to play good legato? Why is it difficult, or why do we even have to talk about it? Yes, any?
Yeah, Sammy.
The way we play the clarinet, there's often like a hitch or a popping sound between the notes, even if we're playing with good air support. So sometimes eliminating that is really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Great. Is somebody like transcribing the answers through the chat, or is that two different separate answers
They're
coming through?
two separate. Yeah.
Okay, well, because you guys talk about very similar things, so that's good. Yeah, difference in error between notes and different reactions and so on. Very good. Um, anything else?
It takes a lot of manipulation of the tongue to do it.
Can you say
Manipulation
it
of
one
the
more
tongue.
time?
Okay,
You got it.
a lot of kind of internal dynamic of our oral cavity and the whole breathing mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are pretty technical way to describe it. The darn tongue. Yeah. There's one thing that we can approach this in a couple different ways, and let's just well, maybe we can come back to that topic. But since you brought out the idea of the tongue, let me say one thing. I know that a lot of times we like to describe the tongue position and the way that we open up, the channel. Those are important because that's true. The problem is that it's so internal, invisible, and so personalized that one description may not suit everyone else. So my approach today is actually very much ear oriented because what I believe strongly is that our body is incredibly capable of producing the things that we want to do as long as we are hearing it and that we are willing to hear. So basically, rather than positioning our all of this correctly, whatever that means, to make it work, the way that I approach is to make it sound right, and your body will follow. And again, it doesn't always work, but I think that's how we naturally learn, the natural learning process. That's how we naturally learn to speak, right? We don't, some of us have to see speech therapist. Well, if you learn foreign language, you have to kind of retrain, think about all of that placement. But even then, I think the best way to do it is to imitate and follow or listen and try to emulate. So I've been more successful is in my teaching that, we try to use more ears and worry about these later. We have a general understanding of what to do. We can close it down. We cannot have loose tongue going everywhere, but kind of minimize our thought in that and try to just listen and make things work and let our body do the work. So let's see if that gets delivered to you. So yeah, let's kind of visualize for a moment that as time goes, like we have a sort of a graph that goes naturally kind of up and down like that. So think about it as a nice kind of simple phrase shape, and let's sort of like picture that in your mind. So follow my hand and try to kind of you don't have to even have to sing it, but just follow the shape and see how naturally it smoothly goes up and down. And this is time, by the way. So it's like right. So that's pretty easy to visualize, but I think that's the simplest it gets. If we can visualize that and we can hear that line and the sound, we can do it, and we can find a way to train our body to do it. Another example of that is something like that, right? It sort of tries to do that up and down, but it's pretty darn shaky. So think about long tone when we practice a long tone. What's our goal? Well, we'd like to sort of build in the most kind of resonant core sound and able to kind of sustain that. Sometimes I know some people practice with different dynamic or different shape, but regardless, we don't want the tone to shake, the air to change, or our tongue to be unstable so that we can maintain the sound. So I always start from long tone. You know, that the sound and maintaining tone, that is the core element to achieve line and to achieve good legato. So if you have a clarinet and would like to kind of follow along, I invite you to do that. But some of you may be putting together your instrument for the first time, and I think it's nice to have a little bit of playing involved. So let's just play like, you know, 5 different notes, long tones, just to get our sound going. So how about we pick E and C and just kind of jump through the octaves. So low E, we're gonna play for like, you know, 8 beats. I'll even turn on a metronome from my part. So with that, quarter is 92, just random time. But try to just, as you play, try to freeze the time. And I just, since we were talking about long tone, I'll give you one example. Don't think about actively blowing the air. I think blowing is a very bad term. Think about fill your lung with the air, open up very little channel, and try to maintain the pressure. It's almost automatic. All you're doing is holding steady, and the air will find its way to escape. But actively pushing through, that's not what we want to do. We want to contain and let this sort of air go. So try poco forte, full 8 beats. Here's a 1, 2, low E. Next, we're gonna do C the next 1, 2. Next E, 1, 2, ready. I'm gonna do C next 1, 2. Next, clarinet E, 1, 2. Let's do 2 more notes. High C, 1, 2. Next, high E, 1, 2. That was a very odd way to play. I've never done long tone this way. I just picked some random notes, very fast tempo. But as you can see, like we can focus on one singular element, which is holding our good embouchure, let the air pressure be maintained, and listen so that the sound does not fluctuate. Anybody think it's simple? It's pretty simple. Yeah? Hope so. Good. Well, what else do we have involved when we play the clarinet? Not only a single note, we got to move our fingers around, right? So that's already a major multitasking. We have to keep this, and we have to move our fingers. Is our brain good at multitasking? It's not. Yeah. I mean, we can sort of do it, but we have to build so many more layers: long tone, fingers, tongue, dynamic, all the other components. So this system is designed, well, the way that we practice our legato, it should be designed upon that we make what we just did as reflexive as possible. So it is automatic, subconscious. And then we're going to start moving around the fingers just a little bit. So let's try with a very simple movement, something very easy. Let's say low A, B flat, back down to low A. That's nice because, you know, it's only one finger. It doesn't involve a key or even the pad. And this time, what I'm going to suggest you to do is first play A as a long tone. But then as you play A, I want you to think about that little shape that I described. A, B flat, A. So your fingers are in imagination, it's moving, but you are still playing the A. You don't change a thing here. So try that. You're going to play A. Nothing's going to change, but in your mind, you're going to go A, B flat, A. Okay, so all you're going to play is A, but in your mind, you're playing B flat and A in sort of separate part of your brain, your fingers. So here we go. Ready? So while I'm playing A, and other part of my brain, I'm thinking, This time, let's actually do it. Use our fingers to move, but do not disrupt a single portion of your air. No tongue, no nothing. No fluctuation, just singular note. Ready? Ready. So we are playing single note. That's basically the idea. Now we play the very easy interval, but we'll be playing much larger intervals, something more complicated patterns, sometimes with greater inflection or coming up and downs, upper register. We're playing with generous air, but we gotta also be able to do it quiet, and all of these will add to the challenge. Sometimes using tongue, you have to use different articulations. Still, there's invisible legato underneath. So again, all of that comes from our air and the way we manage our air. And what I'd like to show you today is that we do not need actually a whole lot of manipulation. In fact, I would strongly discourage from doing anything as you move your fingers. So we're two very independent persons. Somebody else is blowing, well, let's say no blowing, providing the air. Another person entirely is working on the fingers. So what are some of the good ways to do it? Well, let's think about things that we do every day. We play scales, right? We play arpeggios, we play thirds, yeah, some other complicated patterns. So anybody here can answer me, why do we practice those fundamentals? Scales. Why do we practice scales or arpeggios?
Anyone?
I'm typing the response, but
Oh yeah.
an answer.
Can you be a little bit more specific? Expend brain power. Um,
Anyone?
so somebody said here we don't have to expend. Okay.
I think we use like a lot of those same patterns in music, and if they're like already under our fingers if we are learning different music already.
That's a very good answer. I think it's one answer that I like some of the answers that are coming up, and it's really great because I think maybe what we were discussing specifically instigated these answers. But yeah, typically we practice the pattern so that we can learn repertoire quickly. We build our sense of keys and all of that. Well, I think that's a very kind of a single-dimensional answer. Like that's obviously true. But the thing is, all of you probably already have that, right? I mean, you can all play the scales more or less, hopefully, the arpeggios. So I'm gonna change, hopefully, convince you to think the other way. Why do we practice scales and arpeggios? Despite all of that patterns, let's say, you can maintain your core sound perfectly without shifting, despite of the scale, despite of F sharp scale. So when I say let's play F sharp minor scale, it's not for the fingers, not at all. Well, that's obvious, but it's like, okay, you can play the F sharp, your best sound. Now, can you maintain that when you have to manipulate your fingers a different way? Well, I'm sorry, I shifted to major. I should practice more. But you see the idea. It's like you can play the scale at any given moment. If you freeze a time, your sound is steady. So think about like the sound going in infinity. I mean, like a number line, you got infinite number of points. If you slice and stop the time at any given point, the sound is consistent. Now, how surely can you do it? Scales, pretty hard, but not. In arpeggios, really difficult. In third, really challenging, right? So things like, you know, hearing you already heard just so many different parts. Even when you play consciously, so I think that that kind of consciousness when you practice the scale, so or the arpeggio. Let's say every interval that I make, I'm using the Gustav Longinus pattern. So so what I would be really conscious doing is this: listen for. So you get the idea. I'm really observing carefully how steady my sound is, one, and how as I move my fingers, the it does not disrupt our air does not react to our fingers. So in a way, they're playing these familiar patterns because we can rely on them, memorize and well worked. Now you can really listen for how the sound is working as you practice those patterns. Sometimes you have the inflection that goes up and down. Let's say a G major third, when you go. So that again, with the time that is going, and as we move our fingers, the sound does not get triggered. I think at the beginning, some people mentioned some very subtle art of legato, like the pops of the fingers and, you know, maybe the noises and things. And I actually encourage you to just ignore that for a moment because we want to sort of work on layer by layer. So I think my philosophy is that you want to be as honest and clear as possible. So I advocate very clear finger movement as you do it. So again, if we can maintain the straight air and consistent air, and then the next layer that we want to build upon is the clear finger movement. And it's so simple because you're just getting from one note to the other. So we need to just coordinate and do it together. So if you try to be gentle and do all these things, sometimes it actually is less productive. So just clear up and clear down. It's like on and off. Very binary, on and off. So we are clear first. And I think when we practice third, that's really useful. I encourage students to actually lift a little bit higher. So you get the idea. So I can play all the random rhythm, but I'm sort of trying to not react to the way that my fingers are moving. When you're absolutely certain about that binary movement of fingers, then try to make it a little more gentle. Try to prevent the pops and so on. But I think just assuring the motion so that our fingers are not doing anything funny or not coordinating even by a millisecond, then we can really be assured. Well, let's play like some of these. So how about we pick C major? Well, no, let's not do C major. It's too easy. How about we do A major, just 2 octaves. So play one scale. But again, why do we play? We're not really playing A major scale. We're trying to play A and keep that sound all the way up and down. It's like a lifeline. It's the most like or tightrope walking. It's like you even the smallest detour it's gonna fall. So don't kill it. Maintain absolute certitude and consistency, but then move your fingers without disruption. So let's try it about. I'll just give a tempo. Da, da, dee, da. Well, you just follow me, okay? I'm gonna change the tempo just a little bit. I'm gonna slow down when the fingers gets hard, so you can really be assured. But do not change your fingers until you're absolutely sure. You're not gonna disrupt your air, and it is gonna be perfectly coordinated. So here's A major scale. We're gonna stop on top A, so from low A. And also I'm going to hold on to the low note a little bit so they really understand how it sounds. And it's going to be engraved in your mind. So here we go. Coming down. So there's absolutely no difference. The way I started, the way I went up and finished, in my mind, I'm playing one note. So there's no change there, no change of the tongue, really. Right? We can use the same. Now think about playing all of the different intervals from there. Somewhere the heart. You know, we got more of a problem as we change. But if we start from the scale, and our goal is to basically achieve any kind of a jump, there are some when you go down, you have to make adjustment eventually. But I think that idea, simple idea of connecting every note, is going to help us to overcome the challenge. Let's try A major arpeggio. So I'm gonna do, let's see again, the Gustav Longinus pattern that goes like this. So just 2 octave go up and down very slowly, but as you change your fingers, again, it's not about the fingers, it's try to maintain our tone and not react to the fingers movement. So let's go more or less with the rhythm about 2 octaves. 2, ready. So again, I practiced arpeggio, but I really didn't. I was working on my legato. Let's play A major third, 2 octaves of going up about. We're gonna do only 2 octaves, but as you do this, especially be careful not to really relax the air as we fall. So I go we want to make which means every second note needs to have much more air support. So see how that I'm really paying attention to the downward motion where we can naturally relax, so that ultimately we can make this very simple shape. Can you all hear sort of the overall increase of the shape? And then we go extend it up and down. So let's go about at that tempo. So here is a 3 and coming down, ready. So again, I don't feel any difference the way I started. Big journey up and down, but I ended up exactly where I started. So that trains the way that I can manage. I can stay consistent. Anybody have some difficulties found as we play this A major third up and down? Is any particular spots that are tricky than others?
They're thinking.
Well,
They're thinking about it.
Going over
Okay.
the break.
sorry.
She said going over the break.
Yeah, go over the break. Okay, what is that? Don't think about it. Doesn't exist. So I think the best way to do it is just like this is the problem. The clarinet. It's so many keys and so many keys and all these things. It's so mechanical, and when we sing, we never do it. We don't think about these different keys. So we need to detach ourselves from this as much as we can. Well, it's easy to talk about it, but how can we do that? So let's identify each, like I demonstrated before, each of the motions. So from the very beginning, it's bad because think about it. We have to lift these two fingers and then get to C sharp. This is not easy to coordinate, right? You have to time perfectly the way these two fingers and these two rings are released. At the same time, you have to press the key. If there's a slight, overlap, then you get either a slide or unpleasant sort of mix. So that's what I mean by the binary motion, really clean, has to be coordinated. So that's the intervals that we practice. So that's not necessarily easy what I'm saying. And we also have the breaks, like somebody said. What is a break? Doesn't exist. I told you, right? It needs to feel very, very easy. And I think because it's not motion wise, it's definitely more difficult than simpler motions. First thing we need to do is learn about what you're doing correctly in an easy interval. So going back to that A to B flat, most people can do that really really easily, right? It's not problematic. So keep doing it and don't do it actively. I want this to be automatic and stay out and look down at you. What are you exactly doing? How's your air managed? How are you moving your fingers? Now you want to extrapolate that into more complicated movement. Say, things like that. So I'm gonna do the same thing. The same kind of a focused maintenance, and then you try to get from that to the C sharp. I know it's heavy, but I'm moving all my fingers. I'm not leaving anything down, but I can really get to that. So that's sort of like our goal. How about things get more complicated? You know, um, I don't know what else can be more complicated, but you can find all the different examples. I'll show you an exercise that can practically cover all of the useful intervals that I kind of wrote myself. But sort of like that's sort of our target where we can, regardless of the manipulation of the fingers, we can maintain the air. Is there any? Oh yeah, some people said throat tones. Well, that's another thing. And before we even discuss the legato, what I notice in most times the throat tones themselves are bad. Like the way that we sound, it's not our best sound. Same with the articulation. Some people have problem in certain register or throat tones. Why does it sound not so good? Like the Mendelssohn scherzo. Well, because if you just stop, freeze yourself, and see how you sound there, that doesn't sound good. We ever sound it. First, make sure you're fully using the reed to vibrate. You have a vibrant tone, and then your support. You're not tense. Things are open. Then we can start discussing maybe the connections, the air. So while you're doing that, so that we can still maintain this spot of the finger. And then let's say we add a little bit of tongue. Well, it was a little overdone. So again, at a given time, the way that your sound, your tone is maintained, it is fully stable, and then everything is connected as you move your fingers. And then I of course added the tongue. But tongue and legato, when we say legato, everything is connected. I don't think so. I think legato is much more comprehensive. It's the connectedness of the whole notes, groups. So we can present the phrases, we can present the units, musical units. Then we don't talk about a singular note anymore. What we do think about singular note is our air. It accompanies the phrases, the units. Nothing to do with the fingers. That's somebody else's work. That's our fingers. And of course the tongue. So you can separate these layers and then try to read the music. One thing I also do with my students is to say, when you face the music that we all know you have to play beautifully connected. So think about the opening of the Brahms Second Sonata, first movement, Amabile, Allegro Amabile. So beautiful, right? And then how it's not easy to play the legato. So what happens is, because of all the inflection and all the breaks and weird keys, I mean, I'm gravely exaggerating, but something like that is inevitable almost. So detach all of that. Let's just approach the technical aspect, and you can do this with me too if you're interested. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play all of those notes in the opening, but I'm going to get rid of rhythm, and I'm not going to move my fingers until I'm absolutely sure that it's going to connect and my air is going to remain. So then you can move. If you fail, you're going to owe me like a $50 per connection. So it's pretty serious. Don't move until you're absolutely sure. So it sounds something like this, and you're welcome to try. You don't actually have to pay me. So. So I tried a few times the one I don't like as much, but see, I'm solely thinking about how one note goes to the next at a very technical level. It's almost like akin to practicing long tones, right? So as I add the rhythm, and then I start adding a little bit more phrasing, the shape, I'm not influenced by the inflection up and downs of the notes or the breaks, this technical key, but I can actually get the notes out the way that I want. And in the beginning, people said, it's difference in air between notes. And that is true, because not all our notes are built in to have the same resistance. So sometimes we create it internally when we have an open note. When we close in, we have to free up, have maybe increase the air speed and so on. But all of that happens if you just listen and try to play the line perfectly. And that again, I think is the most intuitive way to learn and play the music. It may not work immediately to something like the Brahms, which is vastly complicated, but it will work easily on the scales and the thirds and the arpeggios, the things we play. And I'd like to introduce you to one exercise that basically combines all of the intervals, at least within major keys. And I wrote this to sort of overcome the lack of time that we have. Say, it'd be great if everybody plays the third book of Berman every day, but the last time I tried to do it, it took me about 7 hours. I mean, the real thing with all the fourth and sixth and seventh, all the chromatic, it's nearly impossible. So, but this exercise, I think, is something we can do rather easily. So let me share my screen. I think that you should have received the PDF entitled "Playing Interval Exercise," and I'll load it up on the screen. Can you all see the interval exercise? Yeah? Nobody's seeing my email, right? Okay, good. So here, I basically wrote all of the diatonic intervals within each key. So first one is E major for 3 systems. It goes like this. not easy, as you can see. We're going to do it very slowly, but once you pick up the pace, we can speed it up. But it does cover all the registers, and for each given situation, you're going to find different challenges. And your goal is to slow down. If you have a problem with something like so you can kind of work on those singular intervals until they become stable. Let's go to the F major instead, because I think E major is a little bit tricky. And that's another thing. Each of these keys, like even C major, you'll find that some portions are really hard. In E major, sounds hard, but some portions will feel a lot easier to you. So let's do one measure at a time with me, and I'm gonna keep it about this tempo. So this is, please do not do this. So in your mind, again, you're playing a singular note, and do your best, whatever happens. I don't even care to play wrong notes, just do not change the air. So let's go together. We're gonna play to the downbeat of next bar, and then take a breath, and then do the next bar, and so on. So here's F major. Ready? And personally, I find the conclusion is important. You don't want to sort of taper. Just make sure you get where you're supposed to. Now, a lot of times you'll kind of find that at the end, whether you run out of air or you lost the focus, so that you're assured that there's the air and energy being supported. Let me just stop the share so I can see people's face. How did it work? Okay? Yeah? Yeah. Anybody squick? No squick?
A little bit.
Yeah, no, squicks are really good, important. And so here's one thing. One reason that we don't maintain our air or do something funny with this is because we are afraid, of things like that. But what we need to do is not to change the air, but try to fix your embouchure, or maybe try to reduce the air pressure. Maybe you have too much air. So in order to do that, so think about some ridiculous intervals, like we talked about the registers. For all of them, it's like we should not change this around. You can actually keep the all of these this component of your playing still intact. Think about some tricky excerpts, scary stuff like a Beethoven 8th Symphony 3rd movement, when you have to do the upper register. See a lot of that, right? All of that. Now, that's my physical state. You don't want to think about it. Look at my shoulders and all my throat. it's tricky, scary movement, but our body is very safely locked into the state that you can play. So we can achieve that legato even in extreme circumstances. If there's something like, that's different. We can't do any legato there. But at least up to like a high G, I insist that we try to establish that safe kind of distance where you're sure. You know how your instrument reacts. And that happens through daily training. And I think, if you look at sort of the end of this exercise, frankly, I can't really play myself, so don't feel bad if it's a problematic. But, like the final E major has some very tricky, things like that. But if you practice daily, I think you can achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah, I squeak. That's good. So again, good squeak. I think squeak here tells us how brave you are, how determined you are, not how weak. If you don't squeak, I would really question you because I squeak very constantly as I try to learn new way. I try to dare more into. Just don't squeak at the performance because it's so obvious. But until the day of concert, as you practice, I think those are the times you can get all of the squeaks out and try to work it as perfect as possible. So that's my kind of a final advice. So I don't know. That's a kind of I didn't have a specifically designed notes. I try to cover some materials. Basically, give you a sort of a simple overview of how we should perceive the legato in our playing. Well, it is very central, isn't it? Even through the articulation. And a couple of exercises or day we should approach our daily routine, our warm-up it's really about legato. I'm sorry, it's not really about the notes, it's about legato. So if you come in and play the scale for your jury and do something like I would really not be happy personally. If you're very slow, even if it's rhythmically slightly off or you're really slow, that's really to me the point, because that tells me that you can play, at least you have the prospect and possibility to play everything as well as you can. So in your individual practices, please listen. And that's the only thing I count on, not the mirror, the visual. They're helpful, use it, but use your ears. And that's the only thing you need. And like I said in the beginning, I believe vast majority of us can achieve the right state of playing by having that ear. And if you have the ear, it doesn't matter what your instrument is. You can play a horrible state. That's too much, but okay. I got water in here, but see what I mean? It doesn't matter how terrible the situation is. You get the ear, your body will make it work. Well, we got to set this up so that it's not that difficult, but in the end, it's what's in our head and how we get it out. So that's I think that's where I would finish. We got 10 minutes left, so in case there's any questions or inquiries.
They're thinking.
And I also made a little video of these exercises. At least I think I went through most of them for the ICA warm-up week. So I think you can search that, and let me know if I can send you the link. I embedded the music so you can kind of follow along. I did it under reasonable tempo, so it can be accessed by a lot of people. So hopefully that would be helpful.
We have a question in the chat. Can you address tension and how that can interfere with legato and tone?
Yeah, well, we got many different tension points, right? We have tension here, here, shoulders, your ankles, your fingers, and all of that. some needs tension. Our diaphragm, you know, like this bottom part, your gut needs to be extremely tense, and that sometimes when I say relax, the first thing I hear is relax, because we cannot relax that part ever. So make sure that we are, and I almost would go as far as that if you need to tense up first to really get that developed, fine, just do it, but do not relax this. And once you're really sure about the air and the pressure is really steady, then try to relax. This needs to be stay relaxed, because obviously if this is stopped, our air cannot move through the airway. Well, our embouchure, especially the lower part, cannot be tense, but it needs to be stretched. This part is tense. This part is tense. It needs to be firm. We cannot bite though. That tension is bad. It presses the reed. For the most of upper body, there should be no tension. The shoulders, wrist, the fingers. But again, if your finger is somehow doing something like this, well, use a little tension and try to do this, so that we get the right motion, and then try to really relax it. So I think it's important to understand what we mean by to relax. Well, we don't want to relax our brain too, right? So there are parts that needs to be really kind of firm and steady. There are parts of our body that needs to stay relaxed. Same with the tongue, right? So yeah, again, if your throat is tight, your air will not go through steady. Your lip is tight, your reed is gonna go crazy. Our fingers too tense, so we cannot move it properly. Our whole body. So one other thing that I forgot to mention is the stability of the instrument. And as we do, especially some wild, lips. I'll show my bell. This kind of motion, or so we don't want the anchor of our instruments to be shaky. So there's only two anchors here: our thumb and our upper teeth. This needs to lock in completely, and then regardless of what we do with our motion, the instrument remains steady. So I'm thinking about one kind of a little device. Maybe I can put it in here, and it tells you two things: whether the bell is staying steady despite the motion, and then how far the impact of your fingers is. We'd like to get both of them close to zero. I mean, some will move. So for example, when I play the E major interval steady, look closely to my bell. So this is inevitable sometimes. You see how wildly moving as opposed to. So that you're actually focusing on keeping the instrument locked in a place. It doesn't bounce. It doesn't disrupt our embouchure. So I think that's another nice angle. If you have a problem with the fingers, try to actually keep your instrument steady, and somehow that solves our fingers to be more efficient. The Zhang study, those are really good ones to sort of try, that I ask everybody to look at below the bell and try to keep it as steady as possible. Yeah, the double lip embouchure. Again, I think it's just what the double lip does. It brings out more awareness, I think, to the role of the upper, like how we push down into our upper lip. It sometimes relieve the bite that's caused, but I showed you some examples. I'm gonna use this side, and I can probably play. I think I can play the way I like. You see, the point is that we got to get the right balance of the firm, steady embouchure, the good reed vibration. As long as you understand that, it doesn't matter. And sometimes a double lip helps to give you the different perspective. I use single lip, that's where I feel comfortable. I get, but there's no like a magical perfect position, I think, especially on an individual basis. It's really up to you what you feel the most comfortable and how you can do. So I would encourage you to explore with the assumption that you're going to find a comfortable kind of natural state where your goal is you can stay steady. You don't have to do massive adjustments. You can be flexible, and then you can let the reed vibrate in full.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one. Do you have any plans to create maybe an exercise book for us that has all the legato studies that you do or have written?
So I have my own warm-up book. It's just the scales, and I think we can always create different intervals, and I think more motivated people are inclined to do. It's always a balance because not everybody is inclined to do. I mean, even myself, it's pretty painful. So I like the Zhangzhang's the Vad Mukum, the daily studies where you have a left hand and right hand, and it sounds really pretty too. I think that's a good factor. It's like when you see, even though it's really difficult, some of them, it's kind of worth playing. But yeah, I think ultimately, I'm rather early in my career that I'm gaining my experience, trying different things. But yeah, I'd like to create something of my own to contribute. More, I think, important is that regardless of the exercises, what you want is the central idea, like where are your priorities and what are you trying to achieve? Are you simply trying to play the notes in succession? I guess it's better than nothing, right? If you play the patterns, but if you don't play them with the full consciousness of how we get one note to the other and explore, just freeze yourself. This is one thing I tell my students lately. So think about you're playing any etude or scales or a solo piece, and there's like this extraterrestrial that's looking down at us, and what they have the capacity to freeze any half of a second as long as you're playing, and that half second is what you're going to be remembered for the rest of your life or like after you're gone. So think of if you have that much sort of pressure on every time you play, you're not going to let the single second pass, right? If you play, what if they picked apart? Oh my god, I don't want to be remembered for that. So my mind is always. So out of that, say like they freeze a single second, and that's what I remember for the eternity. I'm still fine. I think that kind of like pretty stressful mindset, but that as long as you're practicing, you maintain that. And as a result, what I tell my students is that you can only practice 20 minutes like that rather than 2 hours like that with the TV on. I guess again, it's better than nothing, but I'm not really sold on the effectiveness of those practice.
Why don't we do one more? There's one in the chat. What do you find most neglected in the training of high school clarinetists?
Well, precisely what we discussed, I think it lacks a lot because there are so many other external factors that are kind of cool. Playing fast is definitely one thing. Trying all these cool other elements of our instruments, but you cannot blame it because those are the things that I was fascinated. I think those are things keep young students excited. So I think I don't flat out dismiss. I think it really keeps the excitement, which is also a really important factor. Without it, I think we just won't have the program running. But I think it's how we sort of guide them into it's more take it into the next level, basically add different layers. And I think just find a way to address these rather complicated and maybe not as fun issues to them and have them practice on a daily basis. So I think we can do all of those cool stuff or fast or things with good foundation. I think that's one thing, because as a university educator, when I have high school students coming in, that's the part I spend the most time. It's really difficult. It's a lot of work and time, and there's nothing more thrilling to have students who have this foundation, so I can start more kind of exciting work for both parties as soon as possible. And things take a lot better with the younger students. My first high school teacher made me do this. So the two exercises he gave me first is this. very slowly, of course, and I had no idea why he made me do it, and I didn't even see the point, but I did it every day. And as along the way, I think I started hearing what I need to achieve, and when I realized it, I've been already doing it. It's so easy. I think those are sort of the things that we can get the young students start. Yes, Ken Lee, use a famous Ken Lee study. Um, yes, number one, rose number one. And I think again the same thing when my teachers made it has a long tradition in New York schools. Daniel Bonad made people do it, but I didn't really understand why we have to do so slow. And it does have a lot of up and downs. It kind of move back and forth, and that really is the point. But I think sometimes the younger students, we cannot explain all of these. They can't pay attention for more than 10 seconds. I'm sorry if there's any high school students who can pay attention for more than that. But I think in a way that we just let them do it, and then it kind of paves the way into the future. So I think that's a nice thing about it.
Well, thank you so much. We had a blast in here playing along with you. I know you couldn't hear us, but it was so much fun. And thank you so much for joining us today and speaking about this really important topic. For me, it was really validating because you said the things that I'm telling them to do all the time. But what was so nice is that you said it in ways that I don't say it. So the new perspective, and we appreciate that so much.
Thank you so much, and the feeling's very mutual too. It's really gratifying to have an audience, and I'm so glad that maybe some of this it will be helpful. And that's the thing, we all say the same thing in different ways, and that's why whenever I get my guest artists coming into my studio, have a very similar feel to it. But again, thank you for having me over, and perhaps you can join us next time. Yeah.
I would love to. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, have a good one. Thank you.